Welcome to Positive Talk Radio. Our goal is simple: to explore evolving ideas one conversation at a time. So, stay with us as right now we present. Not all the time that we get to talk to a particularly funny guy who's an author, and by the way, thank you for your service of being in the Navy. And he's done all kinds of things in his life, and he is actively working to reinvent the art of storytelling. And his name is G.S. Gentry. Is it Gerry? Is that right?
Gerry. It's G.S.
Gerry.
Gerry, not like Tom and Jerry. Yep.
Yeah, with a G rather than a J and all that kind of
That's
stuff. And
right.
if you want to follow along with us, you can go to his website, which I have to ask him about what that means. Could you pronounce your website for me?
Absolutely. So the website is greekden.com. The main character in my first book, his name is Mr. Greek. But you know the song, it's great then, and then it's great then. It's kind of a play on that. So instead of it's great then, it's Greek Den.
Very good. So you can go there. You can look at the book that he had out for about a year, and also you got a brand new book coming out.
That's right. Yeah, I'm working on a new book right now. Almost done writing it, called Hysterical Hangouts with the Hind Legs. And so it's going to be a reality show, but in a book. And so it's kind of an innovative concept, something a little bit different. But my first book's a little different, so it kind of fits the mold there.
Exactly. What made you think of the first book?
So it was based on a real estate transaction gone bad, and so it's about a loving family. All they're trying to do is sell their house, and so along the way they encounter some of the most shady real estate agents you can think of, and they actually end up getting accused of murder and making meth in their garage, kind of like Heisenberg, from Breaking Bad. And so what should have taken 30 days ends up being a 6-month roller coaster of just trying to sell their house and move out, move away, and move closer to family.
Now, does that have some semblance of reality? Is this somebody that you knew, or did you just make this up out of thin air?
No, this is based on a true story. This actually happened to my family and I, and so that's kind of the basis for the story. As we go to sell our house in Colorado, and it's 2019, which is pretty much a hot seller's market at the time. Everybody's trying to sell their houses before COVID even happened. And we had a real estate agent. He's the guy who sold us the house. And the first real estate agent basically drops the ball. I come to find out he's not even living in the state. He's moved from Colorado to Arizona, and he's told nobody. And so we're supposed to have all this marketing done. He's supposed to send these flyers out to the neighborhoods, and nothing happens. We actually put some offers on some other houses to stay in Colorado originally. Those offers don't go through. He doesn't answer my calls for like hours at a time. So we actually lose out on some potential offers. I'm like, what the heck is this guy doing? Come to find out, he's not even in Colorado, he's in Arizona. The lady that had been showing us houses was like, yeah, he's been gone for like half a year now. I'm actually quitting today. I'm going to a new real estate firm. You should follow me. I was like, yeah, we built a good relationship. That sounds like a great idea. So now we go from real estate agent number one to real estate agent number two. And so, kind of the running joke is, how many real estate agents does it take to sell a house? Most people would say one, and you would think that would be the case. Unfortunately, it's not the case for us, and it actually takes us 3 real estate agents to sell the house.
Well, and the thing is, if you're living in Arizona and you're trying to sell a house in Colorado, I don't know how that works. How does that work, or does it?
I mean, he got fired, so it clearly doesn't work very well. He said he was doing everything that he was supposed to do. He was like, oh, we're hiring, this canvassing team, and they're going to go to the surrounding neighborhoods, people that are renting homes, people that are renting apartments, and then their lease is about to get up. And we're gonna send all this information out to them, and you're gonna get all this traffic to your house. And nothing happens. I'm like, hey, did the flyers go out? And it's like Wednesday. He's like, oh no, they're going out tomorrow. Thursday comes, like, hey, did you send the flyers? And he's like, no, I meant Friday. Friday comes, he's like, oh, not this Friday, next Friday, right? Like every day it's a different day. And so I'm like getting frustrated because he's like, yeah, your house is only supposed to take 30 days to sell. I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. I've heard houses are almost selling the time they go on the market essentially. And it just, he lists the house pretty high, and I'm like, hey, that seems kind of high. I haven't seen a house in our area go for that amount. you're right. Like you sold me this house, so clearly, like you know what you're doing. But he obviously didn't have our best intentions in his mind.
And he was thinking probably, and I don't know the man, but I'm guessing he was thinking, well, it's a hot market, and I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is list a thing, and it'll sell all by itself. And then I don't have to, move from Arizona. I can retire here and sell houses there, but it doesn't work that way. I don't think it ever has.
No, it doesn't. You actually have to actively market it. You know, he got photos and everything, and then I actually ended up confronting him about not being in Colorado. And he's like, "Well, I mean, technically my house is in Arizona, but I still have an office in Colorado. I'm there all the time." I'm like, "Well, really? Because the house has been on the market and I haven't seen you once." So he would send like his assistant or he would send somebody else. And then he would call me on the phone shortly thereafter. So like, you know, everything's kosher. I'm at least communicating with him originally, but the further down the process we get, the less contact we actually end up having with them.
So this whole thing was going on with you, and this story of your family. What decided you that it would make great material for a book?
So along the way, right, you know, I told you I actually got accused of murder and making meth in my garage. And so as this is going on, like I'm getting really upset. I'm like, you know what? I should go talk to the news, right? The news would love to hear this story. Course, I go to one of the local news stations in Colorado, send them an email. They're like, absolutely, we want to hear this story. So they send a team out and they come and interview me. And the whole interview process is a nightmare. You know, what makes it onto TV in these news broadcasts is not what happens behind the scenes, right? They cut it up, they edit it. You have to walk up the stairs a certain way. You have to come down the stairs a certain way. You have to open the front door the right way. And so all these interactions keep happening to me as I'm like trying to sell my house. And you know, I include all this in the story. Like I give you behind the scenes access to like what the actual news broadcast looks like. But after the whole interview goes live, it gets pulled after 12 hours because they screwed up. And so the interview comes down. They have the wrong photo in the article online. So they have to remove the photo. And it's literally like Murphy's Law, right? Like what can go wrong will go wrong. And sometimes like to like the nth degree. And so when I finally end up selling my house, I'm talking to a buddy of mine and I'm like, hey, you know, Meth Murder on Amazon, this would make a great book. And this is like, you know, maybe a month after I sell my house, and then COVID happens and all this other stuff happens. And I do a lot of, I work in the cybersecurity space and I do a lot of technical report writing. And so what actually led me to to actually write a book in general was I had a customer call me one day and she's like, Jerry, this report is identical to the report we received last year. And I was like, oh God, please don't tell me that's true because this is like a 450-page report. I started going through the report, the same information, same information. And I'm like, yes, ma'am, this is absolutely the same report. Now, what makes it worse is I wrote the prior year's report. So as I'm going through it, I'm like, this language sounds very familiar. It's because it's my own language. This is during the COVID pandemic. So, you know, they're saying we're going on site to look at physical security. No one's traveling. There is no on-site anything at this time. So I'm like, obviously this guy just didn't do his job. I calm the customer down. I'm like, all right, I'll fix this report. The report goes from 450 pages to 750 pages. And after I got done with it, I was like, geez, Louise, I feel like I just wrote a novel. I have this crazy story that happened to me back when I sold my house. That's it. I already got the title. I'm gonna write this book. And that's exactly what I did. And so I started telling my friends, I started telling my family, I'm like, hey, I'm going to write a book. And they're like, shut the heck up. No, you're not. You're not writing a book. I said, absolutely, I am. And so, you know, I joke around all the time and they thought I was joking. I was like, I'm absolutely not joking. And so I had never written a book before. I'm like, how do I even do this thing? And so that's kind of how it all started. And my goal in all this was to do something different. And so, you have Stephen King, James Patterson, right? Those guys are those guys for a reason. They sell millions of books, but no one wants to read the same thing over and over again. Why not do something different? And so that was my goal is that if I'm going to write something and take the time to do it, I wanted to bring something just completely different. And so that's kind of what I did.
So who did they think that you had murdered?
So the
I mean,
murder
that's
scene,
pretty. It
yeah,
seems pretty easy to prove that it didn't happen.
absolutely. And so the setup is we have an open house on a Saturday. Open house is in Colorado. Me and my family, we have left. We've taken a vacation and we are in Florida. Open house in Colorado. We're in Florida. So when they come to do the open house, they come about an hour and a half, 2 hours early, and they clear everything. They make sure everything's straightened up, picked up. Everything's in good working order for the open house to happen. Well, as they're clearing the house, they go upstairs to the guest bedroom. And when they open the door, they see a leg hanging out from under the bed. They see the leg, they scream, they run out the house, and they call the cops on me. They actually call the cops and they tell them that we must have murdered one of our children and hit the body under the bed. And that's really why we went to Florida. I kid you not. I can't make this up. And so there's the body for sure. All my kids are alive. I have 4 kids at this time. Now I have 5. So I didn't adopt anybody, right? Like I didn't actually murder anybody. But the cops show up, right? All of a sudden the body's gone. They're like, what the heck happened? And so in the book, I'll actually explain like what it was. It was like basically the worst case of perception meets reality, right? I don't know why they wouldn't be like, hey, who's that? Who's under the bed? Come out of there. And the first instinct is just to run out the house and call the cops on me. But that's what they did. And so this is day one. And so as they call me, right? Like when I find out about this, I'm like sitting in Panera Bread parking lot with my family, and the real estate agent calls me and she's like, Jerry, there's someone inside the house. Did you know there's someone inside the house? And I'm like sitting there, I look around, like, excuse me, what do you mean there's somebody inside the house? There's no one inside the house. Like I've got cameras in there, like there's nobody in there but you guys. And she's like, no, there's someone inside the house and they're hiding under the bed. I was like, what? She goes, yeah, there's someone under the bed. There's no one supposed to be here, right? I'm like, absolutely not. So she's like, great. We called the cops. And so as she tells me the story of like seeing the body, calling the cops, she makes it like it's the other real estate agent that calls the cops on me. Well, when I finally come back from vacation after losing the open house and like losing a whole bunch of other showings after the fact, I'm like, I'm going to get the police report. I want to see what they said. Sure enough, I get the police report. It says, yep, so and so called the cops, but it's actually the real estate agent who called me and not the person that she was with that she claimed it was that called the cops. And so she basically lied. She told on me like I killed somebody. And so like now I'm like forever, painted as this villain who, murders people and stuff from under the bed during open houses.
That is frighteningly weird that somebody,
Yes.
because I can see if you're not home, and that happens all the time. It can be a squatter that can get into the house one way or another, and
Right.
and apparently they heard somebody coming in the door, and so they decided to hide under the bed so they wouldn't get seen, and they didn't make it all the way, and
Yeah,
you
they did
get
a terrible job hiding. Worst hide and seek ever.
and then you get blamed for murder.
That's right. That's obviously the logical explanation. There's a leg under the bed, so someone must be dead.
So what did the police kind of giggle and say, nah, nobody's missing and nobody's dead and there was no blood
Oh
and there
yeah.
was no, all that.
Yeah, the cops come, they come and inspect everything, and by the time they show up, there's no leg under the bed, there's no body there. And so the cops call me and they're like, yes, sir, everything's fine. We kind of heard what happened, so we wanted to make sure there wasn't an emergency. Cops showed up and they basically go around the house and check everywhere and can't find anything.
So I'm
So
assuming that's the exit of the second real estate person.
oh, it gets better. And so this is on a Sunday that the murder happens. 4 days later, it's Thursday, and I get a call from my real estate agent again. And she's like, hey, Jerry, we had a meeting at our, real estate firm. Everybody comes in, we talk about the new properties, anything that's going on. And as we were talking, your house got brought up. And so as we were talking, we smelled something that smelled like burning plastic when we were in your garage during the open house. I was like, oh no, was something burning? And she's like, no, Mr. Drake, burning plastic means meth. And so because we smell burning plastic, we think that someone has been making meth or smoking meth on the premises. And so we're going to need you to get a meth test done, or we're going to flag your house in the MLS for suspicious behavior. And she's like, well, don't worry. It's only $50. I said, I don't care if it's 50 cents. I'm not paying someone to do a meth test in my house. Like, this is a nice house. Like, this is in the suburbs. Like, this has a decently high price point. Like, you guys are just acting insane, right? Like, how on earth is this a possibility that not, first I murdered someone? Like, I don't even see how that's possible, but now I'm making meth. Like, how do we go from one extreme to the other, right? So if I'm killing people, then I obviously must be making drugs. They both go hand in hand. And so I'm like, I'm guarantee you're not going to flag my house. And then I was like, I'll sue you. Like, there's no way you can do this. You can consider this the end of our arrangement. Like, we're never talking again. So they get fired. And, at first they're like, well, I don't think you can let us go like that. Like, you need to get this test done. I'm like, no, like, this is it. Like, I don't expect to ever hear from you again. And so she's like, hold on one second. She obviously talks to the owners and they're like, okay, we can just, call it as we see it. You like go our separate ways and call us the end. I'm like, good. Thank you. Have a nice day. And so I'm still mad. I'm like, hey, I'm going to talk to the news. But before I talk to the news, I'm going to talk to a lawyer, right? Because like you can't just do that. That's like defamation, slander. There's got to be something that I can do. Talk to a lawyer. I tell them the story. They're laughing. They think it's funny, but they're like, yeah, they shouldn't be able to do that. They go talk to the real estate agents. They talk to the firm, and then they actually find that there's actually code in the real estate industry that says, especially in Colorado, if there's even the suspicion that there's been methamphetamine on the premises, the real estate agents are well within their rights to request a meth test and say anything, and there's not a damn thing that you can do about it. And so obviously couldn't do anything with the lawyers. So then at that point, I was like, all right, I gotta go talk to the news. I gotta get my story. I gotta say something. And so that's where the news idea came from. And then of course that ends in the train wreck, right? So it's like how many things can go possibly wrong? But that's essentially how the kind of the book set it up. It's from one crazy situation to another, and so I kind of liken it to a roller coaster. And I'll actually bring in thematic elements of a roller coaster. I'll be like up, 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 and you hear the clicks of the roller coaster. You're waiting there in your anticipation. That's the house about to sell. Boom, something happens and you drop down like the first chaotic drop and everybody's screaming. And so I kind of take the readers on a journey on a roller coaster this whole process.
Well, at least nobody found a 55-gallon drum of acid in the garage.
Oh God, I can only imagine, right? Or any other number of things. It's actually funny is my kids had some like airsoft rifles under their beds, like just shooting stuff in the basement. And so like they actually pull it out, set it on top of the bed, and they take photos of it and include it in the police report. Like we had like these weapons in the beds, like under my kids' beds. I'm like, they're guns, guys. Like they're not going to do any damage. But they felt that it was important enough to mention that because there's apparently weapons of mass destruction in the house as well.
Did you? I assume you're married, and
Yeah.
did you and your wife sit down at the kitchen table and say, "All right, what in the hell is going on, and why us?"
Yeah, we certainly did. I mean, we talked about it at length when the meth and the murder situation happened, and she was crushed because we're on vacation, we're trying to sell our house, and like we haven't had the best of luck with the first real estate agent, but I mean, it's not terrible. But then it goes from like, hey, this guy's unresponsive to now this real estate agent's basically assassinating my character. And so we're like, what do we do? Like, I don't know any other real estate agents. Like, I don't want to go interview a whole bunch of people, and so I tell my aunt about this, and she's actually like, tells me, "Oh, I know a really good real estate agent." I was like, "Perfect. Clearly, I can't pick real estate agents to save my life. I'll take somebody else's advice. Give me this guy's number." And so he actually helps us. He finds us the third real estate agent, and so the third real estate agent is the one who finally gets the household. But she has to deal with a whole bunch of nonsense being with us because the story comes out with the real estate agents on the news. They actually put a photo of her real estate agent sign in the broadcast. And so people actually start calling her when this comes out and they're like, hey, so and so, like, how could you do this to this family? What the heck is wrong with you? Like, why would you say that? And it went on from the time the article aired until it got pulled for like 8 hours. She was getting harassed by people because they weren't reading the article. They weren't actually listening. They just see a sign and a phone number and they're like, yep, must be them. Call them up. And so then I had to like go and plead with the news station to take it down. And was like, can you just edit this one frame? Because it's the first frame. And they're like, no, we can't edit any on-air broadcast. If it has to be edited, it's coming down. And so it's down. I was like, all right, well, that didn't end well.
I I gotta tell you. Well, the plus side is the positive side. It came out as a book, and the book I understand is doing well, and you've got a second book out. Have you decided since you wrote these these books that being an author is what you want to do with yourself?
I did, and so the idea of me writing a book, it kind of started out as like an inside joke, right? Because anybody that knows me is like, I don't read tons of books. I'm the kid who, when I was growing up, like if there was a book report due, I was going to read. I was going to watch the movie. I don't have time to read. Like I'm trying to play sports and hang out with my friends, and so I would never read the books. I would always watch the movies, and I did a pretty good job. I always got A's on my reports, so I obviously did a good job calling the teachers. And so, as I go and decide I'm going to write the book, I'm like, how can I break the rules, right? If I'm going to do something, I might as well just break all the rules. And so, writing a book says you can't use run on sentences, you can't misspell words. I'm like, perfect, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And so, the book's not full of run on sentences, but I'll use them to add, more depth, more details to the book and make it read like how, essentially me and you are talking. We don't talk in complete sentences. We don't text in complete sentences. So why can't you write a book like that? And so that was kind of my idea as I went along, and it flows really well. It's just a different way to write a book that's not really out there. And so I feel like I almost came up with something very unique. And so I just kind of play on that, right? Like if you want to read a super unique story that's told a really different way, then this is the book for you. But if you're a traditionalist and you're like, hey, I want complete sentences, no misspellings, right? Even though I misspell on purpose, then listen to the audiobook because you can't tell the misspellings and you can't tell all the run-on sentences that way. But I also use emojis in the book too. It's pretty different. I don't know that there's any other books that will actually use emojis in their book, and so I use them from time to time. Hey, something funny, then I'll go like ha ha ha, and then laughing face, right? So just add another little element there.
Well, and your yeah, the book Meth, Murder, and Amazon has done. It was a literary won the Literary Titan Book Award, the Reader's Favorite Book Award winner. You were a gold guided ebook award. You won bunches of awards with this book. That had to make you feel good.
Oh, it sure did because it's funny as I was like starting to get the book out and like I was getting ready to publish it, I would send it to my friends and be like, "Hey, read this. Like, if it sucks, tell me. Like, right? I don't want to make a fool out of myself, right? So, like, be honest with me." I would send it to them and they wouldn't say a word. I'm like, "Did they read it?" And I'd ask them, they're like, "Oh yeah, it was good." That's all they would say, and I'd be like, "Come on, you didn't read it. There's no way you read it." And so, like, this kept happening, and I'm finally like to the point. I'm like, "All right, whatever. Like, my friends aren't going to read it. Whatever. I'm just going to release this. Whatever happens, happens, right?" And so I feel like if you're going to put something out there, like you got to be willing to take the good with the bad. And so as it comes out, the first thing I do is I submit it to an editorial review. I'm like, these guys have to read it because that's their job, right? So I sent it to the first editorial review, and he gives me a great review. He's like, "This is like Robin Williams on speed." I was like, "Hey, there you go. That's something, right?" Like Robin Williams is a great comedian on speed. That's probably not the best description, but right, I'll take it. Anything with Robin Williams, and comparing it to my book, I thought that was pretty cool. And so I would submit it to the next one and the next one, and I kept getting really good reviews. Like I never got one that was like, "Hey, stop writing! Like you're terrible at this." And so then I started submitting it to awards contests, and I was like, if I win an award, that's going to like give me some validity that what I'm doing actually works, right? And so then I can almost use that as a platform to say, hey, look, you can write a book in any kind of way, in any kind of style, and it'll work as long as you do it the right way. And that's essentially what I did with my book. And so winning the award definitely gave me some validity, and it obviously made me feel good, and I felt vindicated over the real estate assassins, as I like to call them. They're not agents; they're assassins.
Well, I really like the fact that you stepped out of the box to do your own thing and to do it your own way. And when everybody in your family, number one, didn't think you could write a book, and number two, everybody else said, "No, that's not how you do it. You don't put emojis into a book, and you don't. It's got to be formatted a certain way and done a certain way." And you broke all the rules. Have you been a rule breaker your whole life?
I mean, I wouldn't say all my life. Like, I mean, I have a spotless record. I mean, outside my driving record, like I
Well,
got plenty
not,
of
no,
speeding
I'm not talking
tickets,
about
but
being a criminal, but being thinking
yeah.
outside the box.
Absolutely. And so, I feel like I always try to think outside the box, or, I played a lot of sports when I was growing up. And so I would, I'd watch a lot of basketball, and the other guys would do, and I would try to emulate it, and then I would try to do something different and just build it into my arsenal. And so part of it was, hey, someone's like, hey, you have to write the book this way. You need to build the characters this way. I'd be like, no, you don't. You can do it a different way, and I'll show you how. And so the more people that might say, hey, no, you shouldn't do it, or hey, I don't think you can do it. That's just more ammunition. Like, absolutely, I can. And so part of it's like, hey, I'll prove you wrong. I'll show you. And so, you can't take the awards away. Right now, I can say I'm an award-winning author, which sounds funny to say out loud, but it's true.
You are. And you've got lots of reviews on here and stuff. Hey, if somebody wanted to contact you to find out your writing style and to learn from you, would you take their call?
Absolutely, I would. I actually thought about, doing kind of like a publishing business or like an addition to my website where, people could ask questions or if they were trying to publish their own book or whatever questions they might have about writing, to reach out and ask me. I haven't got to that, part of my journey yet, as far as, updating the website and started to like broadcast it. But it was an idea, because I've done the self-publishing thing. I've worked at it. I found a lot of good marketing techniques as well as a lot of good people that know how to do things, the right way. Marketing, you can't fake. You're either good at it or you're not. And so that's one of the things I learned along the way was the marketing, because I feel like that's actually the most difficult part of the whole process, especially if you're not like a marketer by trade or for your day job.
Well, and not only that, now you've been on a bunch of podcasts and all that. That must be rewarding.
It is, yeah. I mean, I pitch my ideas to like the podcast here and there, and I always feel like, hey, if I say meth, murder, and Amazon and podcasting, right? Like people are going to eat it up because like what goes better with podcasting than some murder and some drugs, right? Like you can't go wrong. And then the fact that I put a funny spin on it, it's intriguing, and at least that's what I think, and so that's kind of what I'll play on. But it is rewarding that I'll get, someone that's got a big following. You have a tremendous following. You have great followers, great backing, and so it is great to get on here and share my story and just have great conversations with people. Even if it doesn't lead to book sales, it's always just great to meet new people and just to share my story, because someone will always hear something I say and be like, either one, that's unbelievable, or two, I can't believe he did it that way. I wonder if I can do it kind of a little different.
Well, the cool thing is that you're proving that you can do anything you want to, and you can do it your own way. If you do it right, you just got to have the intestinal fortitude to be able to go do that, and not have other people poo poo it and to say you can't do that.
That's right. Plenty of people are going to tell you what you can't do and what you shouldn't do, right? But at the end of the day, it's your book. It's your piece of art, your content, whatever you want to call it, right? It's your own. And so the more you allow people to get into your head and tell you and dictate what you do, the less it's going to be your own unique thing, and it's going to be similar to some other thing that's out there that no one's going to care about.
Well, now we know about the meth and we know about the murder. How does Amazon come into it?
So this whole time, this meth and murder is going on, I'm actually working at Amazon, and so I work for Amazon Web Services at the time. I switched jobs kind of before all this happens. I go to Amazon, and so along the way, I'm working at Amazon behind the scenes, and then it all kind of goes downhill. Meth and the murder happens, and then I'm like, that's it. I'm never staying in Colorado. I don't want to live here anymore. They think I make meth and murder people. I'm moving back to Florida. I'm originally from Florida. My mom actually had cancer at the time, so I was like, I want to be close to my mom. And so, because I'm leaving Amazon or I'm leaving Colorado, they're like, no, we need to be local. We can't keep you. And I was like, all right, that's fine. Like it's okay, right? Like what's one more thing at this point? And so I just am like, hey, I call up the company that I used to work for. I had a really good relationship with a couple of people there, and one of them is like a vice president. Told them I was leaving. I also told them the story of me trying to sell my house and getting accused of murder and making meth, and so they think it's hilarious. They're like, absolutely, we just need to interview you, right? And so as this is happening, I'm like, all right, let's have an interview. And I'm, preparing and brushing over my resume. Literally, the only thing they want to talk about is the story of meth, murder, and Amazon. I'm like, how did I get accused of this? All these things. So this interview actually ends up making it into the book. I go interview with these guys from this company. Now, part of the fun of the book is I'll change everybody's names. I'll change all the titles. I'll even change the businesses. The only actual real name in the whole book is Amazon. The only reason I use the Amazon is because I reached out to their trademark department and I asked them, I was like, hey, can I use the name Amazon in my book, or will you automatically like ban it, flag it, whatever? Oh, no, no, you can use our name. You just can't say anything derogatory or defame us. And I was like, all right, perfect. I can walk that line, right? Like I can do it well enough that I'm not gonna like have anything go back to bite me. And so that's why I included Amazon on there. But looking back on it, I almost wish I wouldn't have named it Meth Murder Amazon, because every time when I first came out with this book or would post on social media, I would get banned. Instagram, every single day I would post, I'd be like, funny meme, meth murder on Amazon, boom, instantly, nope, your account is under surveillance, you're being monitored. And so the algorithms don't like the keywords meth, murder, and Amazon. And so I don't know if they think that I'm saying that Amazon's like murdering people and selling them in boxes and shipping them all over the country, or they're sending drugs through Amazon shipping. Like, I don't know what they're thinking, but clearly there's got to be something there, because it was for months that this happened, and I was getting so mad. I would go on other platforms and be like, "Look what Instagram's doing to me! They're banning me for this funny book that I wrote. Like, it's all satire, it's humor. Like, I'm not even. It's not even a serious book. Why are they being like this?" And so I would have Instagram reply back like, "Oh, your account's unlocked." I would post the next day, "Oh, your account is blocked again." I'm like, I was getting so mad. So then I was finally done with Instagram for a little bit, and then I won an award and they finally let up some of the restrictions. And so I guess now I have some validity to what I was saying. So they're like, all right, this must be a real thing.
Now, supposedly, what they're supposed to do, because they've got these algorithms that are run by computer, and there'll be certain names that'll come up and it'll flag them. And Amazon's clearly one of those because it's a business and stuff. And so, what they're supposed to do then is kick it over to a department of actual people to read it. I'm not sure if it ever actually gets to an actual human being. It's rather to determine whether or not it should be banned or not. I think that a lot of times they just say, "Nah, we'll just." It's too much trouble to do all that. So if it comes up in the algorithm, well, that's it.
Yep, I think that's absolutely what it was. Because like I was having my wife kind of do the Instagram, because I don't really mess with Instagram like personally, but obviously when I wrote a book, I was like, all right, I need a platform. I need some people that are going to follow me. So as I come out with books, I'll actually be able to sell some books. And so she would post on it, and then she'd be like, "Jerry, your account's banned." I'm like, "What do you mean my account's banned? I didn't even post it. Like, there's not even any drugs in that post." And she would literally tell me what's happened. I was like, "Call them up." She's like, "What do you mean call them up? There's no one you can call. You have to send them you have to send them a message and then hope they respond back to you." I was like, "This is terrible. Like, what kind of social media platform is this that you can't get a hold of anybody?" And so she'd be like, "All I can do is submit like what they rejected or what they blocked and why it's valid, and we just have to hope that they allow it." And so this just kept going on.
Yeah, I don't think
My
that there
account's
is.
down again.
Yeah, boy, I got to tell you, now is this just like the period of the selling the house and for that? How long did this period last, or is it continuing?
So this was for about 6 months. This whole process from the time that I originally listed my house until I finally sold it and moved out of Colorado and away from the meth and the murder and moved to Florida. So it was a little over 6 months. And so the book actually follows you along, takes you through the entire timeline from the moment I'm like, "Hey, we're going to sell our house," until the final day where we close and then we pack up the moving truck and leave. And so I told you a lot of good parts, but there's still a lot of funny stuff in there. If you've ever heard of a bomb cyclone, whenever we actually went to fly down to Florida, once our house goes under contract, we had to fly through a bomb cyclone. And so, if you've never heard of that term or you've never been a part of one, that is a crazy storm. And so, in the book, I'll actually explain there's three types of turbulence. I didn't know this, but when I'm writing my book, I'm like, I wonder what kind of turbulence this is. And so, I found the categories. And so, I write explanations of what kinds of turbulence there are and what it feels like, right? And so sometimes, like, right, it's not too bad, but other times it's like you're gonna crap your pants because it's so crazy. And so, like, I'll use things like that to just take the readers along. I'll teach them about different things. A lot of it pertains to buying and selling your house, but there's a lot more there as well.
Well, congratulations! I think that what you've done with that book and is terrific, and it's nothing short of unbelievable. That all these people would act a certain way, and their actions were not only fake or had no validity to them, but you would think that you couldn't run into that many people in a row that were that stupid.
You would think so, right? And so,
I
I
mean,
feel
you
like
would
I'm a
think
pretty
that
nice guy.
the law of averages would dictate that maybe somebody had a clue.
Yeah, you would think so, right? Like I felt like the first real estate agent, like compared to the second ones, right? He wasn't that bad. Hey, he wasn't there. No big deal. Go find a new real estate agent. But then, what are the chances that that happens? And so, as it goes along, I just feel like, it's the ultimate case of perception meets reality, right? Like they perceive there's a dead body, so it must be true. Let's call the cops and tell them that he murdered somebody, right? Like that's the obvious explanation. Oh, we smelled something in his garage that was burning. Nothing's burning. He's just making meth, right? Like I don't understand how like that could even be a thought in someone's mind, especially because they had met me and all my kids, my entire family, like 25 times. They've been in my garage a ton of times. You're telling me I'm making meth in a two-car garage? Like, no, sir. Like, there's no possible way that that would even happen. I don't even have anything in there. I could barely fit my SUV in there, but I have enough room to make meth. Like, come on. And so, like, as they tell, like, call and tell me this, I'm like, you're kidding me, right? Like, and so before I wrote the book, I would tell my friends and other people I knew the story, and they're like, no, stop it. Like you're making this up. I'm like, no way. Like I couldn't make this up if I tried. I was like even the most wild imagination couldn't create a scenario like this. And then I actually tell them like, oh, by the way, go to this news link. And they would read it like, oh my gosh, like you're being serious. I was like, yes, I'm being serious. I wouldn't lie about this. Like this is so much better than fiction. It's real.
Well, and that's why it comes across as fiction, because nobody would believe this actually happened in the way that actually happened. But
Absolutely. And so, that was the goal of the book too, is to really try and keep it as close to true life as possible, to really keep it as true to the actual events. So I'll actually include pictures in the book as well, besides the emojis. There's actually photos. There's evidence in there. I actually include the police report that says, cross, no crime committed. But that didn't stop them from accusing me of the meth murder, right? So the cops show up and they go through the whole house. Don't you think that they would have told them, hey, by the way, we found some meth paraphernalia, we found some like meth
you would
making
think
devices, something? Well, they found the airsoft rifle, so you would certainly think they would find the drug paraphernalia, but nope, that doesn't matter.
it's amazing how much, because they make a rule like that, how much power they can have over somebody, that they could have effectively um, kept you from selling your house and putting a mark on it, that you how do you disprove that you never had meth or never developed meth in the house? It's not there now, but they still were going to say you did it. But how do you disprove that? I don't. That would be a really
Uh,
hard thing to do.
Apparently, that you can get a meth test done, and they'll come and they'll like test the walls, and they'll test different parts of the house to make sure there's no like residue. And they told me it was only $50, but like on principle, I'm not going to spend 50 cents, right? Like I know I'm not making meth. Like, you gotta be kidding me, right? Like I don't care if you told me you're going to pay it for it. I would just be not do it on principle because I'm so frustrated. Like, why would you even say that? When you've met me so many times and you met my family, like I even try not to swear, right? Like I try to be a good example for my kids. And so clearly making meth wouldn't be a very good example. And so, I try to like be reasonable with them. But after that happened, I was like, no, this is it. This is the last straw. Like, heck with you guys.
Now, did your kids were they aware of this whole scenario as it was going on?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We told them what happened like when we were in a parking lot. They heard like, what? Someone's in the house. Like they only get like, my side of hearing the conversation. I was like, hold on, shush. And like I'm listening to them like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? And so then I tell my wife and we're on the car together. And so as I'm telling the story, they're like, what, Daddy? They said, what? And I'm like, yes. And so, the years after the years go on, they'll just think it's the most hilarious thing. They'll see a meme online. It'll be like I got one sent to me. It was like, what would Jesus do? He wouldn't be making meth, right? And so they'll send me stuff like that. And I just think it's so hilarious. So I'll just post stuff like that online and be like, yep, clearly I make meth, guys. See, even Jesus knows you're not supposed to do that stuff. And so
Oh,
like so they'll like I'll just own it. I'll take it and run with it. And so when I created my website, I have um, a tab on there for recipes. I like to cook at home. I make some pretty good food, and so I labeled it Meth Lab Creations, right? And so sometimes you say I make meth. If I make meth, I might as well just play into it. And so that's kind of part of the fun. And so someone might see Meth Lab Creations and be like, "Oh, great, this guy's giving us drug recipes." Sorry to disappoint you. They're just free recipes to make at home. If I found something that I liked, like I went to Cheesecake Factory and had tamale cakes, I figured out a way to make it. Or I smoked some tri-tip at home, I'll give you the recipe on how to do that. And so I try to add just different things to the website just to make it really feel really authentic, right? Because you come to my website, yeah, of course you can buy the book, but there's also other things on there. There's also blogs on there. Kind of the way I write my stories is kind of the way I blog, right? I tell funny stories, but I'll teach you something along the way. And so I actually talk about the day that the bald eagle took flight. It has nothing to do with bald eagles, but the main character of that blog is a bald eagle. And so, as you know, I told you I had this situation that happened to me where I had to rewrite a plagiarized report. Well, in the blog, it's actually I'm crafting a bald eagle statue, and the statue ends up being a plagiar, like a forgery. And so I have to make a whole new bald eagle, right? And so like I'll just take things like that and transform them and try to make them funny and relatable. There's another one on there about me getting stabbed on a Thursday. So you know, everybody has a day that something crazy happens to them. I feel like, hey, oh yeah, that happened to me on Wednesday. It's why is it always Wednesdays, or why is it always whatever day? My day's Thursdays. I feel like it's been that way probably since the meth happened. And so, and if anything's going to happen, it's going to happen on the Thursday. And so, there's actually a couple of years ago, I actually stabbed myself opening a box. I had to go to the hospital, and it's the Thursday before my wife's birthday. Funny enough, tomorrow is my wife's birthday, and it's Thursday. So, hopefully, I don't stab myself. But you know, it teaches you a valuable lesson, right? Like they tell you all the time, don't cut towards yourself, cut away from yourself. Like the most basic principle in the world. But I'll write a blog about it, and I have photos of when I stabbed myself. I could give myself a nice little gash on my tattoo that I'll never forget to remind me.
Now, do you remember what's in the world's best stuffing ever?
Oh, I know what's in it. So that's actually a family recipe for stuffing, or I guess technically, since it doesn't go inside this turkey, it's more so dressing. But I always call it stuffing, 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 right? And
Yep.
so as I was growing up, my dad would make this just amazing stuffing, like never any stuffing I've ever had before. And so I actually will give you the recipe, all the ingredients to use, how to make it. And so I've had people make it and say that that honestly was the best stuffing I've ever had. I was like, you're welcome. And so I just put it on the blog, and I'm like, hey, you know, if anybody's looking for a Thanksgiving stuffing recipe, you can't go wrong. So I'll do different things with it. Like every year, I'll try to add something different. Sometimes I'll use sage sausage in it. Sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll add poblano peppers to it. Other times I won't. Right. And so I'll just keep messing with it and changing the recipe just based on how I feel, I guess, at that time of the year.
Well, it looks wonderful, and by the way, for those of you who may not have heard this yet, never, ever, ever put stuffing into the bird, and cook it in the bird for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's hard to make sure that it gets hot enough, and you can create, um, botulism if you're not careful, and the other thing is.
Bacteria.
Huh?
I said, yeah, lots of bacteria. I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, lots of bacteria, and the other thing is that bread, if you put bread stuffing in there, it will absorb the meat, or it'll absorb the liquid from the turkey. So the turkey comes out really, really dry. And
Yeah.
it's because it's now all the moisture is now in the stuffing. The stuffing's good, but everything else is really dry, and that's not good. So do it your way. Put it in a pan and then bake it, and it looks wonderful. Looks wonderful.
Yeah. Yep. And my dad, you know, he tried to teach me a couple of times, but you know, like I said, I was too busy playing sports, and I never got the exact way to make it. He would always be like, "Hey, dice this up. Remember, you got to use this key ingredient, right? There's a key ingredient to get this flavor." And so I share with it in the blog. But I would never have known that if I wouldn't actually taken the time to spend with him and you know cook with him, and you know, it's a good bonding experience, and we had that in common. And so now I took it as I got older, and I teach my kids how to cook, and I write, you know, little recipes on there and share with people.
How many boys do you got?
So I have three boys. My oldest is going to be 18 this year. My youngest is 4 months as of Tuesday, and I
Well,
have two girls.
so you must have had him when you were like 15.
19, yeah, I had just barely turned 19 when I was born, or when he was born. I was in the Navy. I was basically just fresh out of boot camp when he was born. So, yeah, first one will be 18 this year. Then I have a 15-year-old. He'll be 16 in June. He's 6'2" probably now. He's much taller than me. And we were working out in the garage the other day, and like I got behind him to like spot him, and he's like this much tall. I'm like looking straight at that. I'm like, dude, like, where did you get so tall? Like, I almost wanted to like, you know, like punch him or something because he's so tall.
Yeah, it's tough when your kids get bigger and stronger and smarter than you are, which
It's
happens
so
to me all
true.
the time. It happened to
That's
me all
right.
the time. I love your store on your website, and you've got an apron, and you've got. I love the "Don't mess with me until I've had my coffee." That's the mug that's there. So
Yep.
go to his website. His website again is Drake and Den. Is that Drake Den? Drake and
So
Den.
think Great Den, but it's Great Den. So instead of Great Den, Great Den. So the main character of the first book is Mr. Greg, and that's kind of where this comes from. But it's greatden.com, and so if you go on the about section, it'll actually be like it's not Great Den, like it sounds like a Kraken, but it's the Great Den. No, it's not that, and so it's like the Great Den.
Ah, very good. Now the second book is it at the editors now?
So I'm a little unique in that I don't use an editor. Now, to be fair, right? What's an editor going to tell me when I'm breaking all the rules, right? Like, hey, you can't misspell those words. Like, no, I misspelled it on purpose. Like, I know I misspelled it. It tells me every time when I misspell things on my tool. And so I thought about this, and when I first started going through this process of the first book, I found that editors, charge anywhere from a few cents to multiple cents a word just to edit. And so I'm like, I'm gonna spend like $3,000 or $4,000. I don't even know if I'm gonna sell 3 or 4 copies, right? Like I don't know at the time. Like I've never done this before, and so I'm like, if I put money into this and no one buys it, right? I just threw my money away to someone to tell me how to change my book, and I didn't want to do that. And so after I won all these awards, I'm like, all right, I clearly wanted something. How am I going to tell somebody, hey, I wrote like this, I use these things. So everything that you're about to point out, don't point it out because I know it's in there, right? And so I don't use an editor. I'm still actually writing the book. I'm almost done though. I've only got a couple chapters left to write, and then I'm gonna plug it into my tool called Scrivener, and I'm gonna edit from there for probably a month or so, and then it should be ready to go.
Well, it
But
makes sense since you're breaking all the rules anyway. You would be an editor's worst nightmare.
absolutely. They wouldn't even know what to do with me. They'd start reading this and their probably eyes would start bleeding. And so that's why I tell people, right? Like if you're a traditionalist and you're like, hey, the book has to be this type of way and written this way, just go listen to the audio book because it's probably going to bother you that I use run-on sentences and I misspell words and things like that.
The moral of the story is that you can write, and if you have a desire and you have a story to tell the story. People are very forgiving about necessarily grammar and that kind of stuff. I couldn't tell a run-on sentence if you to save my life anyway. So if it doesn't make any sense. So
But yeah, I mean, we talk
congratulations,
in those.
huh?
Thank you. I said, well, we talk and run on sentences every day, and so that's kind of what I was. That's kind of what I was going for whenever I was writing this. I was like, I want this to read almost like how we're talking right now, and so the writing essentially takes on a character of its own. Like Lemony Snicket's his books are kind of like that, in that he almost like writes to the reader and he almost interacts with them and engages with them, and so I do that as well. But then I'll also include different elements. I'll include sound into the book. I'll make funny sounds. I'll make interesting sounds. I'll even do Dr. Seuss type style rhymes in there. And so something will happen and I do like a remix to London Bridge is Falling Down. And so as I'm getting ready to leave Amazon, instead of London Bridge is Falling Down, it's some other nursery rhyme that I made up. Or if I go to another scene in the book and I'm doing the interview, and I'll take Whistle While You Work, the Snow White song with the Seven Dwarfs, and I'll transform that into something else. And so I just take all these elements that make either a great story or just make for a great experience and try to include them in the book. So yes, you're reading a book, but it almost feels like you're in the story. Like you can actually hear the sounds, you can actually feel, and it's not just because I wrote like these specific words, but I bring in really just unique elements.
That's really cool. And before we started the show, I mentioned about doing stand up. I hope that you get around to writing some stand up and going to some open night mic nights and stuff. I think you do really well.
Yeah, that could be fun, right? I mean, who doesn't like, getting up and making people laugh? But I'm sure it's also a different kind of, getting kind of nervous and, having to present and talk to people and have that right comedic timing. But also, right, like what if you suck, right? You get up there, you have this great story, and then you just fall flat on your face and people start booing you and throwing stuff at you. Like, at least when I read, I can just hide behind a screen over here, like, hey, you don't like it? That's okay. Like, I'm not going to get hurt.
Well, if you talk to every comic who's worth his salt, everybody's been run off the stage at one time or another.
That's right. I mean, I'm sure it's the same way with people who write books and other things, right? You hear this stuff all the time. C.S. Lewis, Dr. Seuss, right? They submitted their books like to 20, 30 different people, and no one wanted it. No, it had nothing to do with what they were writing and how they did it. And so I feel like that's kind of part of the process. Is just you just got to be start getting used to rejection.
Exactly. Now, do you have a kid running around right behind you?
Yes, I just saw her back here. There's a dog in here that she's playing with.
Which one is that?
So this is my youngest daughter. She's 9.
Oh, well, can I introduce myself to her? Well, hi there. You've been just running around behind your dad, and he's had to mute himself and everything. But nice to meet you. How are you?
Look at me. I don't think she could hear you. Sorry.
Oh, nice to meet you. How are you? What's your name? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
What's your name?
Whitney.
Whitney's a beautiful name. How are you today?
Good.
Good. Are you proud of your dad? Say yes. It'll be helpful later.
She said,
Oh,
you gotta be louder.
oh, very good.
She's
Well,
probably
it's nice
nervous.
to meet you, and I've had a great talk with your dad, and now you're going to be on TV.
What?
Yep, you came in here, so now you're part of the show.
Yep, you're going to be on YouTube, so you can tell all your friends that you've been on YouTube.
Yep,
Okay.
that's right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You probably didn't know what to do with herself when I called her over there, because she'll come in here and see what I'm doing sometimes, but she usually doesn't like get in the screen, and so she must have been just a little too curious because you saw her.
I did. Well, she looked like she was dancing in the background a little bit.
You know, she probably was. She loves to dance. That's how we can always tell that she's in a good mood. She'll either be dancing or she'll be singing songs. Even sometimes in the bathroom, like all of a sudden we'll hear those loud music coming from the bathroom. I'm like, what the heck is going on in there? And she's just singing a song in there, like having the greatest time. And I'm like, all right, she must be in a good mood. And she always has a good time when she does that. But if she's not in a good mood, you won't hear as much singing or dancing going on. So I feel like kids usually wear their hearts on their sleeves.
Yeah, well, from what everything I've been told, that you are a heck of a dad. You've got 5 great kids. You've done really well with yourself, and continue writing. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to. Will you call me and so that I can interview you again when the next book comes out?
Absolutely, and so I'm trying to do this book launch the right way, right? I'm actually trying to follow the rules this time. When I released the first book, I didn't know there's this thing called book launches. I didn't know there's this thing that you need to do called marketing. But it did work out, right? But I mean, marketing, right?
Oh yeah,
People got to be able to find your book. If they don't know about your book, you're not going to sell any copies. You know, it seems like common sense, but sometimes you just don't get it. And so my book actually came out in February and I hadn't marketed, I haven't done anything. I'm like, hey, this is a great title. It's catchy. People are going to read it and be like, what the heck is that? All right, this sounds interesting. Let's get it. But that's not what happened. What's lucky though is my mom got to see me become an author. I printed out the copies, I sent it to her, and she actually passed away in March. And my book wasn't actually supposed to come out until March 31st, and so that was the plan. But there was a mix-up whenever I went to do the self-publishing. When I went to do the print versions, there's no pre-order date on Amazon. I didn't know this at the time because I've never done this before. So as I go to submit, I'm thinking like, all right, it's going to prompt me for a date when I want this pre-release to be or pre-order to come out. It never did, and it's like, hey, your book's going to come out in 72 hours. I'm like, all right, well, I guess it's coming out then. No stopping it now. And so I actually got printed out some copies. I got to share it with her, and then she passed away, a few weeks later. But I felt like if I would have done it the right way, she probably would never got to see that happen. So I feel like, it's kind of a God thing, and that,
it was something that was really cool. And by the way, I'm sorry for your loss.
yeah, yeah, it's been a little over a year now. So, getting through it, that's a part of life. And so, I understand that. It was tough, but, I was able to bring my kids with me. They were able to say goodbye to their grandma. And, just talk them through it and share that part of life. It's not easy, but, kids shouldn't be shielded from some things like that as well, especially as they get older, right? Like they don't understand when they're super little, but as they're older, they do get to understand those things. And so it's difficult, but it's good to let them be a
Well,
part of it.
I'll tell you, as you get older and more of your friends, you're still young, so I'm 30
Yeah.
years older than you, or 25 years older than you. So, as you know, my best friend from high school passed away, and two guys I played baseball with that passed away. My brother passed away. My mom passed away. My dad passed away. You know, so you get kind of used to it after a while, but
Yeah.
it's
Doesn't
just
make it any easier right now.
no, but it's
Yeah,
just part of life. Uh,
that's right. That's part of life.
by the way, we've been interviewing G.S. Gerry, and go to his website again, which is, I'm not going to pronounce it right, so you do it,
It's greatden.com.
and find out all the information about him. You can buy the book at Walmart, Audible, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, you name it. You can, and if you like a local small bookseller that you like to give them your business, go give them the title, and they'll get the book for you. And so that would be good for them and be good for Gerry too.
That's right. Absolutely.
So, is there anything else you'd like to add before we say bid adieu?
Yeah, I'm coming out with a new book, as you kind of touched on. I'll kind of tell you guys a little bit about it. It's going to be called Hysterical Hangouts with the Hind Legs, and it's going to be a reality show as a book. And so I feel like that's a pretty innovative, unique concept. And then I did some research, and I couldn't find but like one or two of them out there. And so it's going to be it's going to play on, essentially the worst stereotypes of a family dynamic. Whenever you meet your girlfriend or you meet your significant other is, pretty much a bride and true tradition. You meet the girlfriend, you go meet your parents, and you live happily ever after. Well, what happens when you go meet the parents and you meet the family, and the other person you're dating is recording everything, and he's going to release all this footage for the world to see, but he gets a lot more than he ever bargained for. And so along the way, this main character, who's the reality show producer, actually gets pulled into some crazy events. He gets wrestled by the dad. They do a little arm wrestling contest. Then the brothers hog tie him, string him up. The very first time he meets them, the father ends up being a mad scientist, knows how to make hydrogen gas balloons. So I don't know if you noticed or not, but you can actually turn water into explosive gas. Well, if you read the book, I'll teach you how to do that, because he told me. And there's also a lot of other crazy things. One of the brothers actually takes the main character on a journey, does a drive-by shooting with the soda can, believe it or not. And so they run for their life through these back country roads, trying to flee the scene of a crime because the brother hangs out the window and attacks an unsuspecting car. And so every chapter is basically like an episode from a reality show. And so I use a lot of humor to kind of bring that story along, but always kind of involving the camera.
And the name of the book again is
Hysterical Hangouts with the Hind Legs. And so the arch nemesis, I guess you could call him, is his girlfriend's dad, which is Commodore Adolf Hindleg, ATEOFF. So it sounds like he's ate off his hind leg.
Yep, and he's a Commodore, so he was in the Navy too.
That's right. He was in the military, and so there's some military thematic elements in there. I even include, since it's supposed to be like a reality show, every book is going to have a rated TV 14 or rated TV 13 or whatever, and I'll give you kind of like, hey, there's going to be alcohol, there's going to be substance abuse, there's going to be violence, there's going to be blood, or kind of all the good parts of what they have to disclose as part of the shows that you watch. And so again, trying to do something different here, but it's going to basically show what happens when families stop being polite and start being real, because you really don't know they're being recorded.
Exactly. Well, looking forward to getting that book out, and it'll be fun because it probably will win awards too. You seem to have the knack.
I hope so. I'm certainly going to submit it, and like I said, I'm going to actually do this whole book launch thing, send it out to get reviews, and try and get a bunch of reviews. I did say if I can get to 1,000 pre-orders, I will release it well before the due date. So let's make that happen.
Yes, indeed. Go to would they go to Amazon to do?
Yeah, so for this one, they'll go to Amazon for this. I haven't updated my website, so if you go to Amazon, search GS Gerry, you will find the Hysterical Hangouts with the Hind Legs, as well as Murder Amazon.
So GS Gerry, thank you so much for being here. I've really enjoyed our time together.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's always great meeting new people and getting to share my story and have a little fun and adventure along the way.
Oh, it's a great story. It's a great story. So go pick it up, and you can go to his website again, which is GRAKEDEN.com. And you can find out all about him and everything that he's got going on. So thank you very much again for being here. And by the way, congratulations on following your passion. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And again, thanks for having me on.
You betcha. Hold right there, and I'll be right back. Hey, thanks for enjoying this episode all the way to the end. Please give us a like and subscribe to this channel. This has been a production of PositiveTalkRadio.net. Please visit our website, oddly named PositiveTalkRadio.net, for more details about us and our mission, which is to provide great positive programming designed to inspire us all. I'm Kevin McDonald, and I'm proud of these shows, and I truly hope that you'll like them and share them with friends and family. So on behalf of our entire team, remember, be kind to one another because each other